Hi, I'm Ole from Subphotic.com, and in this video I'm going to tell you all about mono, what it is and what it's used for. I've recently had some questions about what it is, and I thought I'd just make a video out of it and see how it goes. Before we dive into the mono stuff, remember to download my free mixing cheat sheet. The link is in the description, where I give you 15 cheat codes to a better mix and my workflow broken down into 10 steps. Mono. Mono means one audio source for one audio track. For instance, I'm speaking into a microphone right now. It's a Rode NT2A. It's one microphone. I got one voice and it's coming into that mic captured by my DAW Logic Pro. It's only one source of audio and hence it's mono. I could put that track on a stereo track in my DAW if I wanted to. It would still be mono. Why is that? The difference between the left speaker and the right speaker is the same. It's the same on both sides of the stereo spectrum. It's sound coming from the middle. There are no differences between the left and the right speakers. Take a look at this track right here. You see, it's marked off as mono, which means that it only has audio coming from one single source. If you have two sources, say you have two voices speaking simultaneously, recorded through two microphones, one for each voice, you would have a stereo image when you would play back that audio. What you could do in post-production is to pan them a bit to each side to make an impression that they are in different positions in the room, whereas the listener would sit maybe in the middle. Then you would pan one speaker to the right and the other to the left, for example. So when we're mixing music, we have sound sources such as hi-hats, toms, cymbals, guitars, piano, strings, and so on. We would always use those types of instruments to pan to the sides. So that's one typical usage for mono. So you have one microphone recording a hi-hat, or you have a sample of a hi-hat from a drum machine, for example. Usually that's mono, and you could pan it, you can have it dead center, but to get a more open and wide mix, you would pan the hi-hat somewhat. Same goes for toms and cymbals and so on. So even though individual sounds are mono, they can be used to create a wide stereo field, if you catch my drift. So that's one use of mono. Just to expand a bit on that, when you mix vocals, you regularly have your lead vocal. All vocals are mono as long as they come from one sound source, which is one voice. In rap music, at least, if you have a choir that is mic'd up with different microphones, you would have a stereo source. But in our case, where we make rap music, you will have lead vocal, background vocals, ad-libs, dubs, and so on. You would have your lead vocal dead center in the middle, and then you would have a backing vocal on the left and a backing vocal on the right. The more difference you have between the right and the left, the more stereo width you get. In that video over there, I go more in depth about creating width in your mixes. So what else can you use mono for? Well, in your DAW, you have the option to mono your entire mix when you're monitoring. So when you have a mix in front of you and you start panning instruments to the sides, one trick that I learned from one of my mentors is that you can start panning without hearing what you're panning, but you will hear when you have your DAW set to mono. For instance, use a plugin like this one to set everything mono, put it on your stereo out bus or your mix bus or whatever. Make sure it's the last thing that touches the mix before you hear it. Now, putting it in mono can mean that there's a lot of stereo information that you don't hear, which makes it easier when you are compressing and especially EQing certain elements. And you can even pan while having your mix in mono. So you don't hear per se the panning you're doing, but whenever you are panning, you're experiencing a decrease in volume on the track that you're panning. So if you have a track dead center and then you start panning it, for example, to the left, you will hear a slight decrease in volume, even though your mix is in mono. And when you turn it back into stereo, you will hear how much or how little you have panned that element. And then your ears are fresh and you're a better judge of your stereo mix. So that's one great tip for using mono in your mixes. Don't forget to download my free mixing cheat sheet. The link is in the description, where you get 15 cheat codes to a better mix and my mixing workflow broken down into 10 simple steps that you can apply right now and get results right away. Download it free. Link is in the description. Now, the last thing I'm going to say before I sign off is the relationship between mono and bass. You often hear on forums and whenever there's a discussion about having the bass in mono, I just want to give my take on it, and it's yes and no. You should have your low end in mono if you are, for example, making a hip-hop track or other types of modern music. If you are mixing sound for a movie, there's a slightly different story, because if your audio is going to be played in theaters, for example, you have a setup with 1,000 different speakers and 1,000,000 different subs. But if we keep ourselves in the mindset of a stereo track, a hip-hop track, or any other type of modern music, bear with me now. Low end should be in mono. 250 hertz and downwards should be in mono. And when I mix, I make all my tracks mono from that point on. What should be down there is, of course, the low end of the kick and the low end of the bass. And maybe, just maybe, the low end of whatever sample you have tucked in there. And then you would need to use sidechain compression to tame those parts of the sample whenever the bass and the kick is working. And for more information about sidechain compression, check out that video. It will give you a rundown of the specifics in that technique. So everything below 250 should be in mono. Let's discuss bass for a moment. So you have a bass signal, a bass track, which consists of some sweet low end subs, and then you have the low mids, and then you have the upper mids. You have a lot of information there, and to make an impactful bass, you oftentimes need to have your bass in stereo in the upper frequencies, so that it will punch through the mix, so that it will be heard on cell phones, for example. Many times you want to make it nice and wide up in the frequency spectrum. So that's bass. But make sure that low end is mono. And how do you do that? Well, you use an EQ. In Logic, you have the stock EQ. You can put it in a mid-side mode, and then you can just high-pass filter out the sides. So you only have the mid left. And same goes for kick, really. Usually kick drums are in mono because it's only one kick drum, but oftentimes you have a mic inside the kick and one on the other side. So you have actually two mics, which in essence make a stereo source. Even though the differences between left and right are basically the same, you could always pan them out for a more creative sound. And when there are kick samples, I've often experienced that those might be also in stereo, and there might even be slight stereo width on the kick, especially samples from acoustic kick drums. And there I would do the same. I would mono the low end of the kick, and I will maintain the stereo width of the kick further up the spectrum, just to be sure. And maybe later down the line in the mix, I would just push the mono button on it and be done with it. But that really depends on the sound, how many other elements is contributing to stereo width in that particular mix. So it really depends. So that's my answer on that. And I've been talking about mids and sides a lot, and I've made a whole other video about mid and side processing. You should check that out. If you've heard that word again and again, my advice is to just learn what mid and side is and how to process mids inside. It's really useful. You get much wider and cleaner mixes if you learn and apply the techniques of mid-side processing. So check that video is over there, and I'll see you there. Peace.